as in choosing to surround ourselves with the people who use their freedom to celebrate and encourage us to embrace our own, we may never get to choose who we're related to or who we love, but we can always choose our family. Ian Martin, Buffy Episode Guide, Family. The Daily Grind, Chapter 161. James took a bite out of his apple, the snap of the fruit fresh and crisp as his teeth broke a piece off, and sagged back into the beanbag chair. It was a warm day outside, a late summer heat wave baking everything in its path, but warded off by the Lair's air conditioning. There was a fundamental truth about the Order, and by association the Lair, that it was sort of a difficult thing to classify. Was the Order a professional Delver organization, or were they a loose affiliation of survivors, or were they something else, either more or less? Similarly, when it came to the Lair itself, the vibe of the space often existed in multiple zones of thought at once. Was it, for example, a dedicated space for careful research, testing and cataloging artifacts and phenomena, trying to turn weird dungeon rewards into powerful social tools? Or was it a home base, a place to rest and rearm between missions, where the people who spent the most time there were the ones doing paperwork? Or was it a clubhouse, just a big building that they had inexplicably secured as a place for the various knights and aspirants to hang out while they waited for the world to get weirder? James was pretty sure it was all of those, and probably a few more things too. But it also left them in a really weird position sometimes, where, in the back warehouse space among analyst desks and an armor printer, Nate was doing a preliminary debriefing with the rogues over the events in Taunton. Upstairs in a well-appointed office, Karen was making phone calls to various government bodies in the state of Tennessee that had no idea what was happening, and in the lobby, James was sprawled out on a beanbag chair. He liked these beanbag chairs quite a lot, actually. They were really soft fur padding, and whatever was used to stuff them was fine enough that it felt rather decadent to take the time to relax on one. The dissonance of beanbag chairs in the headquarters of a paramilitary paranormal nightly peacekeeping order was not lost on him either. Around the lobby, humans and cameracondas moved through the space comfortably. A few people moving around the lair, a couple people relaxing like himself, a few having quiet conversations, one of their interns doing some light cleaning. There was a fairly large group that kept coming through in ones and twos, checking out and making moves on some absurdly large-scale war game that was set up in the far corner. A few people heading home or coming in for the day, many of them members of Response. At one point, Bill had come through the door hauling about 400 pounds of 2x4s, and everyone within eyeshot had suddenly moved in concerted motion, helping the man funnel several tons of wood from his truck into the basement, and making sure that James didn't try to help either. Which was fine as far as he was concerned. As soon as he'd landed back in the lair and he didn't need to keep going anywhere, whatever magic endurance had granted him just pieced out to take its own little nap, and James had basically collapsed. Over the next couple of days of rest and medical examination, he got his full personal inventory of damage. Moderate muscle damage in his right leg, 2 broken fingers, 4 cracked ribs, a sprained ankle, a number of lacerations and abrasions, which, while they'd begun clotting quickly, would still take a full while to heal. Fairly bad blood loss, too, which was at least mostly taken care of by one of his purple orbs. And, of course, bruising. Bruising everywhere. Bruising across his chest, his arms, legs, shoulders. Basically all the right side of his hip was one massive bruise, and a lump on his head the size of a baseball. As it turned out, it didn't matter how many superhuman feats of endurance he stacked up. Getting in multiple car crashes and fighting through an army of necromantic constructs with a sword was grounds for injury. Anesh and Alana had both gotten out cleaner in the hit points remaining contest, but they also hadn't been in a car that was flipped over, so James wasn't prepared to concede anything to them just yet. Instead, he leaned back, took the deepest breath he could before his lungs started to ache and his throat locked up from the pain, and enjoyed the relaxation time. Just laid back, enjoyed the sunlight filtered through the slim, secure windows around the upper half of the front wall, and watched the people who had thrown in with him and his stupid ideas enjoy their time in this communal space. Then he perked up as a familiar voice made its way down the hall. Need anything else, all right? Anesh's English accent, lighter now than it had been years ago when James had met him, was still smooth and stood out easily to his ears. All right, thank you? Like, really, thanks. Alana's own voice, a bit awkward but still just as comforting as it had always been to James, returned. You sure you don't need help with anything? The two of them came into view around the corner of the row of lockers against the wall of the common area, and James found himself smiling at the sight, and also the sight in the background of the hallway, of Ava riding a Camerconda down toward the cafeteria. Not a chance, Anesh said. You got the holy hell beaten out of you. Go relax for a while. Get some food in you if you need it, whatever. Technically, I wasn't there, so I'll be fine. James checked without being too obvious about his staring, and noticed that while Alana had a number of bandages on and her arm in a sling, Anesh looked like he'd been in perfect health for his whole life. Okay, Alana laughed, and it felt like the world shifted into being correct again. That's really unfair, you know, she said as Anesh grinned at her. I hear that a lot. Anesh looked like he was suddenly unsure of where to move his feet, and made a motion that was half stepping forward, half turning away. Alana noticed, and without breaking her smile, slipped forward and gave Anesh a quick one-armed hug. You're good, she muttered to him. There's no rush now, right? Right. Anesh smiled, his whole body shifting in relief. Okay, I'll see you later. He turned and headed toward the stairwell door that led to... James actually couldn't keep track of the basements. It led to one of the basements, though. And then Alana looked around the room and spotted him, and the smile on her face quirked upward a little bit again. She strode over, taking limping steps from damage to one of her knees. She was wearing shorts, and James could see the heavy bandage held in place with medical tape. This is woefully unprofessional, she told him, towering over his makeshift bed. You are absolutely right, James agreed. I should have a throne. Bring me more beanbags. Alana rolled her eyes and barked out an off-guard laugh before dragging another beanbag over and settling in next to James, pushing the two pieces of plush seating together and wedging a manila folder between them as she relaxed. See, the crazy thing is, I know you're in charge here, she said to him. Whoever told you that lied, James groaned, closing his eyes as he chewed more of his apple. Also, what's in the file? Huh? Alana glanced down. Oh, right. An Anesh? You can just say Anesh. They're all the same. That's got to take getting used to, right? James chuckled. You think that's bad? When he first started doing his whole production line clone thing, there'd be 2 or 3 of him around in the same room, and they'd alternate whole sentences when they were speaking. I do remember that, yeah, Alana said softly. James glanced over at her, giving her a worried look. I'm fine, she insisted. It's just weird. It's mostly back, but there's all these little things I'm still connecting, I guess. Oh, like the file. Anesh gave me a list of things that I could do. You're allowed to... I mean, you can... Alana made to swat at his arm, but suddenly remembered how beat up they both were and stopped. No, you jackass, Alana's voice held an amused tone. Like a list of all the purple orbs I have, as far as was written down. Oh! James laughed awkwardly. Yeah, that makes way more sense than what I thought. So, aside from that, how's it been? You doing okay? Settling back in all right? I guess. Alana shrugged. I remember us a bit more. Fuck, I don't even know how to start with this. I remember loving you, and why, and I still feel that, but it also feels like we've got no momentum. Like I'm missing all the little rituals and habits of being together with somebody. Not that I actually know what that's like. Like, I remember a lot of it, but it's not happening, and... Okay, weird question. Was my relationship with you two the first one I'd ever been in? Sounds like you need to reestablish emotional reflexes. Also... No. I can answer this. James blinked, trying to pull up a memory. You briefly dated some guy named... Scott? Back in school as a teenager? Scott... Ogden. Yeah, that guy fucking sucked. Alana snapped her fingers as she put the memory together herself. God, compared to that, any relationship is probably pretty good, huh? Yeah, but, like, ours is better anyway, 'cause you and Anesh are in it, and I love you. James let the vulnerable words slip out before he could stop himself, and abruptly hoped he hadn't pushed over a line he wasn't supposed to. Hey, I love you too, dumbass, Alana said, without thinking about it, and then a second later her face lit up crimson as she looked away. Oh, she cleared her throat awkwardly. Well, guess that reflex is still there. Great, cool. Shit, are you okay? James asked quietly. I'm... She took a breath and looked at him, seeing the concern in his eyes and feeling it through her empathy. Then she tilted her head back and took a quick breath. Actually, yeah, I'm good. I am good. That felt great. I'm going to say it again. She paused, and James raised his eyebrows at her, twisting painfully in his seat to lean over. The moment stretched out as he waited, until Alana finally said, Okay, I thought about it too much. Never mind, I'll do it later. James couldn't hold in a relieved laugh. All right, well, no rush, he said. God, I can't believe I got hit in the head so hard it made me an awkward idiot again, Alana bemoaned. What, like just now? James quipped. She snorted. Nah, I mean, with the memory loss thing. Was that not head trauma? Nate filled me in on the whole status quo siege during my preliminary debrief. I don't remember the whole thing, but I do know I got taken out midway through and I was hit in the head repeatedly. Oh, James suddenly remembered something and pointed at her with what remained of his apple snack. That's not head trauma. Getting hit in the head isn't head trauma? Yeah. No, yes, the memory thing. Apparently people have known about this for a while and research only just got around to telling me. Abruptly breaking the hardware part of the Skulljack connections to other people causes loss of access to long-term memories. Normally it's not a problem because you're right next to the person and the memories recover almost instantly, but when Anesh teleported back and left you, he didn't take the time to do it right, so you woke up without memories and no one near you to get them back. James scowled lightly. Everyone just kind of assumed I knew this, so no one informed me directly, which is a dangerous way to think around here, because I'm kind of dumb. Wait, why didn't that Anesh remember them? Alana asked, confused. That was the Anesh who died, James muttered, trying to press away the pain in his chest that wasn't quite physical. Rapidly, upon return, so he might have had memory problems too, but, well... Alana's face twisted into a sad and angry look for a moment before she composed herself. I'm a lot more glad they're all dead already, she grumbled. I actually kinda like Anesh, you know? Don't think I've forgotten the first memory you recovered of him was hotter than the first one you got of me, James reminded her with a grin. Oh my god, shut up. Alana looked around for some kind of pillow or other soft object to smother James to death with. Changing the subject now. What's the whole order been up to since I've been struggling to survive in Florida? Like, it's been months. Have we taken over the government yet? Ended all crime everywhere? Not quite. James felt his cheeks start to ache with how much he was casually smiling in his partner's presence. Oh, through both dungeon magic and also basic research, I can now safely tell you that your plan to digitize human minds as a way to combat poverty would not work the way you wanted. It's also not really an effective way to deal with crime, since it turns out the overwhelming majority of crime, at least in this country, is wage theft. So, we'd be better off just destroying capitalism. As always. Okay, but how will I get paid for my hard work? Alana asked, kidding. I feel like I should be given $1 million for every time I save the world. You joke, but this is actually a real problem in how people talk about things that we're trying to combat around here. James sighed. Capitalism is different from the abstract concept of commerce, you know? I'm not saying we need to get rid of money, just... I don't know, honestly. I don't have a plan in place for this yet. It's half-baked. But my point stands. No creating digital refugees. It doesn't solve anything. Alana rolled her eyes. Well, that shoots down an idea that I had forgotten I'd ever had. What about new stuff? I don't know. What's everyone else brought you up to speed on? Have you talked to Sarah yet? I haven't, though I do remember her. Like, a lot, actually. Where is she? Alana looked around the lobby, focus briefly settling on the scene of Deb taking a Shalaxi for a walk before she shook her head. I feel like she's pretty much always been present, but she isn't around lately. James shrugged and winced. More or less, he said, taking another small bite of fruit, and suddenly realizing he was going to have to try to lob the apple core into a garbage can from 15 feet away without standing up if he wanted to remain comfortable. She's in the attic. Clutterescent. It's nice. It's a friendly place. I really like it there. I think it likes us back. There's a group of Order members who live in the house around it as kind of caretakers, but Sarah's really the one who thrives there, and I think the dungeon feels the same way about her. That's pretty cool. Does it still do the mental puzzle chests? Alana asked. I never got a chance to try one of those. It does, and they're super relaxing, actually, James nodded. Want to head over there later, when my legs don't feel like jello and I actually want to stand up? Sure, Alana smiled. So, what else? Well, we hired some new people. Found the kid of the woman who the Camercondas sort of worship. Started replacing the police. Cured cancer. Oh, we also, No, stop. Go back. Alana let out a long breath through her nose, pinching her eyes shut. You can't just say that. Which part? James said, smiling to himself. Let's start with curing cancer, Alana said. James chomped off the last piece of his apple. Okay, he said, around a mouthful of fruit. Well, we found an orb that reduces cancer, and we're copying a lot of them. It's not actually nearly enough, but it... There was a sudden small pop of displaced air, and a miniature glass vial filled with some kind of yellow substance appeared and dropped to James's lap. The heck is that? Alana blinked, not sure she'd seen it correctly. James looked down at the finished apple in his hand. Oh. He shook his head, trying to focus. Right. Completely forgot about that. He let out a relieved laugh as he tried to get over being so completely startled, before picking up the small container of saffron. Glancing around, he caught the attention of a Camerconda that was moving in the right direction. Hey, Frequency, he called, and the young snake pivoted her body to course correct toward him. Hello, Frequency of Sunlight said as she approached. Welcome back, both of you. The Camerconda bobbed her head in greetings. Thank you, James smiled at the snake. Man, I just realized I haven't gotten a chance to talk to you in a while. Your English is getting a lot smoother. I practice. Deb helps me. Frequency sounded rather self-satisfied. The various tricks the Camercondas had to turn synthesized voices into appropriate tones and tenors on display in her words. Do you need anything? I am going to help the kitchen. So saying, the Camerconda rippled the set of mechanical arms harnessed to her back, the gesture coming across as an almost organic-looking display of a shrug. You're getting good with those, James smiled. I'm glad they made something like that for you. I should give our basement team a raise. But also, if you're heading to the kitchen, can you drop this off? He held out the spice vial. Absolutely, the Camerconda assured him. I take this too. She unfurled a pair of her manipulators and gently plucked the manifested spice and also the apple core out of James's hands. Thank you. Please stay seated and do not nearly die again. It would make many of us very sad, Frequency of Sunlight said, bobbing her head again and turning to slither off. Alana waited until the snake was around the corner before rolling slightly and saying to James, You know, I remember that I have Camerconda friends, but it's still really weird talking to a non-human life form. It's pretty weird being guilt-tripped by a non-human life form, too, James protested, crossing his arms and tipping his head back over the edge of the beanbag. She's been practicing. She's the one dating Deb, right? Right, James confirmed. Alana nodded, and then held up a hand, making a gesture of trying to figure out what she wanted to say next. How do... I mean, do Camercondas... I just... James interjected. For reasons that are way less fun than you'd think, I can confirm that yes, Camercondas do have primary sexual characteristics, he told her, not moving from his odd position. Maybe I wasn't going to ask that. It was Alana's turn to protest now. Maybe I was going to ask how you made something appear out of nowhere. Rolling his head back forward and adjusting to sit up a little more, James smiled over at her. Sure. But also I can answer that too. I absorbed an orange orb a while back, and unlike Inesh, who got the power to clone himself, I got the power to spawn small amounts of saffron whenever I eat enough apples. He snorted a small laugh and shrugged. It's whatever. Kind of my own fault, I think. I should have planned more carefully, but also it's handy for the kitchen, and Nate's paella is delicious. He found himself smiling again. The two of them lapsed into a comfortable silence until James added, I don't know. I just kind of feel good with, I guess, just having a community that has that kind of stuff going on. What, people dating? I mean, yeah, he laughed. We're alive. We're people. We aren't some creepy corporation trying to maximize efficiency or a military trying to homogenize everything for legibility. We're us. Sometimes that means our interpersonal drama is going to cause some issues, and that's okay. And sometimes being us means that we're dating Camercondas. Actually, that makes me think of something. Do Camercondas date each other? Alana asked. I haven't asked, James realized, rubbing at his chin and realizing that he needed to shave. That's a good question. I should ask. This place is so weird, Alana murmured, pressing herself deeper into the beanbag. Yeah, isn't it great? Kinda, yeah. She took a breath of the pleasantly cool air of the Lair's interior and closed her eyes, snuggling back into her seat as she slowly continued to let go of the tension of the last several months. Finally, finally, she was somewhere that she didn't have to be aggressive or stealthy just to get through the day. She could, at long last, relax, and no one was going to try to hurt her. I like it, Alana said, her voice tinged with exhaustion. With a lingering look and a small smile, James watched her doze off. Enjoy your nap, he spoke softly. Hell knows, you earned it. I'm not asleep, Alana mumbled in her sleep, turning to curl herself up in the beanbag. James stifled his laugh so as not to wake her, and just lounged back, trying to find a new sitting position without having to put pressure on his broken fingers. The splint for those was still taking some getting used to. And he went back to just experiencing the moment, feeling the tired bruises slowly heal as he unwound and relaxed, and casually watched the people around the lair. There were more people than he'd really realized. Excuse me, a voice from the front door spoke up, and James looked over, seeing a middle-aged man in a button-up shirt. The guy had a classic business person style going on, neatly cut hair, slacks accentuating the look. He had that classic attitude of someone who was used to being on top of the situation, and the equally classic attitude of someone who had just walked into the lair for the first time. Am I in the right place? He said, confusedly staring at a Camerconda that was slithering past into the briefing warehouse. James took a breath and made to stand up and greet the guy, but someone else beat him to it. Ethan, walking by in the other direction from the back briefing room, gave the guy a friendly wave. Yeah, you have to be. You can't get in here if you aren't scheduled. He looked the man up and down. One of the lawyers, right? Oh, yes. The man stuck out his hand. Aaron McKinley, estate specialist. Ethan gave a weird teenager impression of knowing what a handshake was, and James tried not to laugh, while promising in his head to show Ethan how to do that correctly later. Okay, well, you're going to want to talk to Karen. She's upstairs. Just go back along the left, take the elevator up. You can't miss it. He called over his shoulder as he turned and half jogged back to whatever meeting Nate was running. Elevator? The lawyer looked around at the various people going about their day, like he was being pranked. This is... A human emerged out of the stairs just past the lockers. It's a single-floor building, we know, Marcus said, shutting the stairwell door behind himself and going over to find his own locker. Are you one of the lawyers? I think Karen is upstairs. Just take the elevator up, you can't miss her. I should have been filming this, James whispered to himself, regretful. Being told twice was apparently enough for the lawyer, who shook off his confusion and walked by, giving a wide berth to the exasperated Camerconda moving past dragging a folding chair. Not because they were a serpent, but because they looked like they were in a hurry, and that attitude always worked to get people out of their way. That was kind of perfect, James said to the young man who'd come up from the basement, which he realized must be the response side of things. He was wearing one of those stylized pins that someone had been making for response members on his coat shoulder, right next to the rainbow flag pin and another of some fancy sun emblem. Have you been here long? Marcus grabbed a small pill bottle out of his locker and pocketed it. Little while, yeah. Are you new here, or... He looked over James with a worried look. Someone who got teleported in for medical care? Is your face all right? Face... Oh, right, chemical burns. They're not serious, it just looks bad. With the realization that he was sitting atop a mistaken identity comedy goldmine, James just gave the smallest, least painful shrug he could. I've been here a while. Clearly I don't know everyone, though. Marcus laughed, and James decided he liked the kid already. Yeah, it takes some getting used to. I still don't know everyone. Of course, I spend most of my time in a basement. Oh, don't sell yourself short. Research spends all their time in at least one basement, and they get recognized. Yeah, I keep meaning to ask exactly what they research, but I always forget. Marcus stared off into the middle distance. It's probably teleporters, he decided. Shockingly, no. I've banned them from stupid telepad tests for at least a month. James cracked a smile. Marcus gave him a polite, if slightly confused smile in response. Yeah, well, the things work, so I guess that's good enough. He shrugged. Anyway, I need to get going. I've been sleeping here for a few days. I need to refill a prescription. Were you part of the big response deployment? Something happened to a whole city. It was, Marcus trailed off, both uncertain if he was oversharing and also still clearly disturbed by what had happened. I wasn't even there, but God, the whole thing was bad. Yeah, it was, James agreed. I'm just glad we have people who can react to it, you know? Without response support, there's a lot of people who'd be dead right now. He hadn't heard much yet, but he did know that of the survivors, many of them were people who had been trapped under debris and rubble, or sealed into buildings by asphalt barriers. Yeah. Are you in response? I haven't seen you around yet. I'm Marcus, by the way. Hey, Marcus, I'm... James! Momo inadvertently finished his sentence for him, crashing into the side of his beanbag in a power slide that left her sprawled on the floor next to him, and James, slightly jostled but otherwise unmoved. From her shoulder, a harried-looking Rufus scuttled up the beanbag and settled in on James's lap like the world's most self-assured metallic cat. Ow! James might not have been sent sprawling, but he still felt that in his bones. Momo, why? I'm supposed to be resting. You have never, once, after any fight, actually wanted to rest, Momo countered. James glowered at her. I always want to rest, you... whatever you are, he sputtered. But there's always stuff to do. Well, you looked restful, and I figured I'd give you something to do. Do you want to help me try to make some life in the basement? Momo looked altogether too excited. You come in here. Wake Alana up, even though she's politely pretending you didn't. Interrupt my pleasant conversation. Shit, sorry, Alana. The taller girl cracked an eye open. It's okay, she said, before closing it again and trying to ignore everything going on. Momo wasn't done apologizing. Also, sorry, Marcus. How's your shift going? Anything I need to know about? No, ma'am, Marcus said, in the kind of voice people used with authority figures. Nothing new. We're resuming normal operations later today. Harvey has a few things to talk to you about when you have time, but he says he already messaged you. James looked back and forth between the two of them, a gnawing dread forming in his stomach. Momo, are you in charge of things? He asked suspiciously. When did that happen? I'm not in charge of anything. I just lead a response unit, sometimes, and Harvey delegates a lot to me, Momo said. That's the same... James and Marcus started speaking at the same time, and then made eye contact over Momo's sprawled form on the floor, and shook their heads at each other. This wasn't an argument they were going to win. James continued. Momo, go do your job. We'll talk later. He looked away, a little sheepish. And also, I am feeling better and already plan to attend the full debrief later, so let me nap in the sun for a little while, all right? Yeah, Momo said, rolling to her feet. Rufus, you want to ride back downstairs? She asked, but the stabler just waved her off. All right, your loss. Keep up the good work, she said to either or perhaps both of them as she rushed off. That girl's been drinking too much of the special coffee, James grumbled. Marcus looked like he had a question to ask, and James gave him an open-handed invitation to continue. How long have you been here? I didn't actually ask properly. James held out his good hand, offering an introductory handshake. Hi, he said. I'm James. I've been here for a while. Kind of from the start. He looked around the common area. I was expecting somebody taller, and not in a beanbag chair. Marcus shook his hand, dealing with it pretty well. You're not a very dignified boss. First of all, James protested, I'm not really a boss. I just kind of give people resources and nudges, and they do things without me. Also, I just fought a tanker truck dragon, a crazed necromancer, and saved hundreds of people from extermination by an indifferent demigod. So I can sit where I want, and where I want is this beanbag. He crossed his arms, causing a protesting tap from Rufus as the idle petting stopped. Marcus stared at him, crossing his own arms as his eyes narrowed. How much of that did you just make up? He asked, suspicious. James laughed. Good question. None of it, but still, good question. You fit in here pretty well, don't you? Yeah, I like it. I'm doing something important, Marcus said. Pretty nice, huh? Better than the alternative, Marcus agreed. I suppose I just appreciate the chance. Also, the people are nicer than they should be here, and it's weird, but it's also cool. Also, aliens exist and I can be friends with them, so that's happening. James held up an injured hand in a hold-on motion. Okay, as great as it is to see people as excited as I am about all this, I think it's important to note that the Camerondas or Rufus here or any of the other non-human life aren't actually aliens. How do you figure? Well, they're from here. Maybe not the normal places, but they're still from Earth. They have the same claim on the world that we do. We're all citizens of this planet, you know? James looked over at a Cameronda helping a human set up for the support group meeting later today. Then looked down at Rufus nestled in his lap. It's different. They're different, but they're not alien, he reiterated. We're all in this together. Okay, I like that. Marcus shrugged. Also, shit, I guess if anybody I should be more careful with language like that. My bad. Just gotta keep improving, right? James nodded at him. Also, don't let me keep you. You seemed like you were in a hurry earlier. Yeah, I gotta get to the pharmacy before it closes. Just teleport there, James suggested. There was a pause. That seems... Wait, that was an option? Maybe? James shrugged. I teleport everywhere, but then I think a lot of people just don't want to tell me I can't, and I may have special permission because 2 of my cars have died in the line of duty. From his side, Alana spoke up for the first time since pretending to go back to sleep. Your most recent car isn't dead, it's just upside down, and in another state. Oh, well, in that case... Marcus chuckled. Alright, I'll go ask Harvey. Anyway, nice meeting you. Sir? James. Boss? Harvey calls you boss. Harvey's breaking the rules, it's James. Glorious leader? Marcus asked, slipping into the stairwell. Oh my god, leave. James looked around for a pillow to throw, but, like Alana before him, came up short. After the door had clicked shut, Alana rolled herself back over to stare up at James with smiling eyes. You like him, she said confidently. God, I can feel it. It's like a million little things I'm remembering all at once, and every one of them is you being belligerent to authority figures. Did you once flip off a cop when we were in high school? Technically, I did it when we were out of high school, too, but that time they'd been shooting at me and it felt more justified, James grumbled. Also, yes, he's my style of person, completely disrespectful of my position as supreme leader. Alana laughed, and the 2 of them lapsed into comfortable, companionable silence for a while again. The 2 of them were just enjoying being together again, and not having any pressure for a while. At some point, Anesh, the same iteration of Anesh who had been injured alongside them, joined them, dragging over a pair of beanbags and making something closer to an actual bed he could spread out on, laying behind their heads. He'd brought Ganesh with him, and the drone and Rufus were soon scrambling around the pile of relaxing delvers, playing their own game of tag while Anesh caught the others up. "Elle's going to be in the hospital for another day for observation," he said as he sunk into the warm fur. "Response thinks they've got all the survivors out that were alive. It's not good, but it could have been worse. We're going to need to talk about some stuff in the next few days." "Yeah, I'm going to the meeting tonight," James said. "I'm not. Well, I mean this me isn't. This one is going home and going to bed and sleeping for another 12 hours. I've been making that iced coffee you were using, and I'm going to give that a shot." "Was that a coffee pun?" Alana asked. "Also, yeah, I want to go back to the apartment. I've been either in the hospital or here since we got back. I want my normal bed." She trailed off, suddenly nervous. "Oh, wait. Yeah, we just have one really big bed that we, you know." James gave her an awkward look. "Do you want to come back? Like, I'm going to be honest here. I'll find it awkward until we're actually there, and then I'll be fine because things will be back to normal, but I want you to be comfortable." "Yeah, I know. It's cute," Alana told him. "Seriously, though, I'd say I remember about 90% of myself at this point, and most of it's the important stuff. Probably. So, yes, I'd love to go sleep with Anesh." "I'm flattered." Anesh put a hand to his chest. "To be so highly thought of." Alana flushed a deep red again. "Wait, no, that's not what I meant." She tried to backtrack. "I mean, it is, and I'm not trying to leave you out, or prioritize him, but I..." It was too late for James, who was already cracking up laughing at the whole situation. "Oh, man," he shook his head. "You have no idea how not worried I am about whether you prefer sleeping with me or Anesh. Seriously, it's fine. Chill." He reached over and ruffled Alana's hair in a casual, friendly gesture. "I'm just glad you're back. We can get back to normal whatever speed you like. And, since I'm going to Camerconda movie night, it would be you sleeping with Anesh." "Aren't you supposed to be resting?" Anesh asked him. "Explaining the Princess Bride to Camercondas who have minimal exposure to Earth culture is restful to me." "That is a lie at best," Texture of Bark Dust called as she slithered by, carrying a stray backpack in her mouth. Anesh perched himself over James, looking down into his boyfriend's eyes. "Even the Camercondas are aware of it, James," he said. "You need to sleep." "I slept all day. My sleep schedule is messed up," James protested. "I'm going to movie night, and I'm going to eat baklava and talk about meta-textual storytelling. This is how I relax." "How he relaxes sounds pretty good," Alana admitted, perching on her elbows and gazing up at Anesh. "Maybe we should join him instead of going home and having sex." Anesh sputtered. "What? I mean, we were..." He cleared his throat and rubbed a hand at the back of his neck. "That wasn't exactly what I had in..." Alana darted forward, interrupting him with a kiss, drawing him down and bumping into James, who was watching the two with a wide smile on his face. After a few seconds, Alana pulled back, and Anesh toppled sideways, off balance and panting a little bit. "Hey, you were right," Alana said to James. "Just doing it on reflex does really help." "Did you remember anything important?" James asked her coyly. "Or do you think you need to do that again?" "Only time will tell," Alana replied sagely, curling back into her relaxed position that didn't pull at the bandages around her shoulder. "You think Anesh is okay? He seems injured." "My bones," Anesh groaned out, flopping across the cushion next to James's head. "Need any help?" an amused young man's voice asked, and James looked over and followed his vision up the pair of feet standing behind them to see Nikhil looking down at Anesh's prone form with something between humor and actual concern. "I can do first aid if you need it. Probably includes CPR, but it looks like Alana has that covered." "Please, kill me now," Anesh muttered. "I can take it." Did you finally get a copy of an armory package? James asked, ignoring his boyfriend's pleas. I saw the note on the server that we expanded the options while I was on vacation. Nikhail looked guilty. I actually still haven't. Reed says I have to before I'm allowed to go back in the office, but there's a wait list, so I'll probably just join the Akashic Sewer rotation instead. That's not better, James's gaze sharpened. Now I'm going to tell you can't do a thing. I'll put in a word with our duplication wizard and get you an orb set, okay? Though, good job learning first aid stuff the normal way. Oh, I did not do that. Nikhail shook his head, holding up his left arm. James saw it was wrapped in an oddly patterned green glove that reached midway up his forearm. The authority that bonded with me can do it. Figured it out when I was assigned to a response team, actually. It's really cool, and Reed has a very, very long sales pitch to give you later when you're not injured. So, you're a healer? James blinked. You can heal people with magic. No. Nikhail's voice turned toward the pedantic. Ademy can do a few things involving first aid and stabilization, or rather, produce the outcome of those actions, as long as I have the authority, see what I did there, to be operating in that role. Alana sat up, looking at the glove that Nikhail was wearing carefully. Wait, what? She narrowed her eyes, leaning forward. These are the things from status quo, right? It was kind of a fundamental truth that a lot of the power the Order had to bring to bear was the kind that they'd earned through fighting. And the tools recovered from status quo were no exception. Except they were, just a little bit. The shield bracers were something everyone was still getting used to, especially as they cloned their own. But the authorities? The strange strain of infomorphs was unsettling to be around, and they didn't know much about them except that they had been completely subservient to the status quo agents who had tried their best to kill everyone in this building. The fact that the glove Nikhail was wearing looked more than a little bit like a pattern of interlocking chains did not help James associate it with anything comfortable. This one isn't from status quo, Nikhail rebutted. Ademy was hatched here, and his focus is on rendering medical assistance. So, the authority thing. We mostly call them that because it's what we overheard. Is that, like, thematically linked? James was curious now. Nikhail nodded excitedly. Sure is. He flexed his fingers, and the glove rippled around his arm. His strength appears to be related to both our institutional strength as well as how I, personally, am filling my assigned role. It's a very... Well, I think it's interesting. Reed said you would have something to say about it. He raised bushy eyebrows, looking at James expectantly. With a long, suffering sigh, James flopped back and began to monologue. It does raise an interesting question about whether or not it was meant to be a kind of control mechanism, in the same way that the road used the search engines to push people away. It creates a situation where obeying orders and failing to question mundane authority grants greater power to continue to do exactly that, reinforcing the organization and leading to more institutional strength. That's actually pretty worrying. It's a virtuous cycle, except without the actual expectation of virtue. Unless there's an independent decision by the organization as a whole to be good, which, they tend not to do that. We do that, Alana suggested. Well, yes, we do that, but we're a secret cabal of teleporting disaster response superheroes, so we get a free pass, Anesh added. Oh, wait, no. Yeah! James threw a hand over his head, landing it randomly on Anesh's shoulder in a friendly bit of casual contact. Yeah, we don't get a free pass, because our method of enforcing good behavior is cultural, and not based on organized rules or laws. It's working now, and I think we can make it continue working well into the future, but just because we're doing something abnormal doesn't mean we don't have to be on the lookout for factors that incentivize bad behavior in groups or individuals, like companies, governments, or anyone that works for large companies or large governments. James looked at Nikhail's glove carefully. And that might just be one of those things, he said. But I like him, Nikhail protested quietly, anxiety in his voice. And it's not like I'm doing anything bad, either of us. My role is as a medic. Yeah, that's a good point too, James conceded smoothly. The fact that infomorphs, including authorities, can become people is good grounds for not treating them like something as simplified as incentivizing factors. Also, a focus on healing or just support actions in general is a powerful method of making that virtuous cycle actually work in our favor. If we're known as the people that can magically seal wounds on sight, we're suddenly going to get a lot more of the kind of positive attention that we're going to need in the coming years. You should ask him if Adami can actually do that, Anesh suggested. James nodded. Right. Hey, Nikhail, can... Yeah, sort of. Probably not as powerfully as you're thinking, but kind of. Okay, cool. Anyway, closing thoughts. This is the closest thing we have to a healing potion. I am 100% on board. James yelped suddenly as Rufus skittered across his chest in his ongoing game of tag with Ganesh. Also, ow. What, the magical car repairing petrol doesn't count? Anesh asked. No, never mind. Wait, I said it out loud and I heard myself, and now I understand why. Nikhail nodded excitedly. All right, cool. So if you could just repeat everything you said to Reed, because I'm actually on my way to the response deployment to Taunton for my shift, and I won't be around for a while, and it would be cool to have more authorities around. Get out of here before I revoke your permission to go outside. James rolled his eyes at the researcher. That seems like it would actually hurt the authority, though, Alana suggested. Oh, hey, whoa, that's actually a huge problem, isn't it? Like, doesn't that link someone's job to an actual life? I don't know if that's okay. I wonder if we can safely test moving the authority bond to a new person, Anesh mused. Nikhail took a step away, hiding his arm behind his back. Test it with someone else, he suggested firmly. We're not going to cut your hand off. We just want to make sure this is something sustainable, James sighed. You don't want to be your job for your whole life, do you? My job is trying to figure out what magic items do and delivering emergency medical aid via teleportation. Nick's voice was so sarcastic it almost triggered Anesh's venom immunity. I think I'll survive if I don't retire. Touché. James pursed his lips as he nodded. All right, well, get to your shift. Thanks for giving me more work when I'm supposed to be resting. No problem, Nikhail said, waving a hand wrapped in solid green light as he turned and headed down the basement stairs, holding the door politely for a pair of response members coming up on their break. I feel this is going to be another long-term concern, Anesh groaned a minute later after he was out of sight. That's the only kind we get these days, James griped. Remember back in the old times when we could just fight the bad guy and then we were done with it? The other two went silent. Even James and Ganesh stopped playing to turn and stare at James. Eventually, Anesh cautiously cleared his throat. James, that has never once happened. Oh yeah, James smiled. Well, add that to the pile, I guess, he said, closing his eyes again. I'll deal with it after the nap. You've been pretending you were going to nap the whole time, but you still haven't. People keep coming over to talk, Alana complained. I know, right? It's weirdly familiar, and I don't like it, but it's also comforting. James twisted to look over at the far corner of the room. I just wish someone who's playing that board game would come by and explain to me exactly what the rules are, because I am super interested. You could just ask. That's awkward. You literally just fought a mass murderer to the death, and you're worried about being awkward over a board game, Alana said, the sentence morphing from a question to a statement as she spoke. No, wait, that checks out. I know exactly how you do stuff like this. Yeah, he's adorable when he isn't infuriating, Anesh said. Alana grinned. I remember you saying that. I remember me saying that. I'm going to die of embarrassment now, James informed them. Inform my next of kin. You can't die now. You have to be the leader and decide what to do with a city we own now in about half an hour, Anesh told him. Also, there's that movie thing later that you keep talking about. It irked James, but his boyfriend had a really good point. He decided not to die of embarrassment until at least tomorrow. There was just too much to do now to quit. The three of them actually managed to have some quiet time then, the minutes ticking by in a casual afternoon of lazy relaxation and quiet shows of affection. A few people who passed by nodded to James, but no one else really interrupted for a while. He'd have to get up soon, he knew. Go and talk about serious things, make actionable plans, and then act on them. But right now he was here, home again, surrounded by magic and magical people, with the two individuals he loved more than anything in the world. A warm summer day wrapped around the building, and a bustle of activities both serious and silly taking place inside. He'd been on vacation for almost 2 weeks, but a fairly large chunk of that time had been spent fighting for his life, and it was, ironically, only now that he was back home that he really felt like he had the time and space to breathe, and just enjoy the feeling of time passing around him. When his phone alarm finally beeped at him, James groaned as he rolled gracelessly to the floor and hauled himself upright. Perfect relaxing moment over. Time to get back to work.